They say the world is full of mysteries, but some are so disturbing, so mind-bending, that even science refuses to touch them. What if the things we dismiss as nightmares, coincidences, or glitches, are actually glimpses into something far stranger? These aren't your average ghost stories or urban legends. These are terrifying, real mysteries that break every rule we thought we understood. And once you hear them, you might never see reality the same way again. The Forest That Screams. The Night Echoes of Marrow Pines. The first scream was faint, barely a whisper on the wind, but it stopped Jacob Reeves in his tracks. He had been hiking the Marrow Pines for over an hour, following an old trail carved through the dense trees, when he heard it. At first, he thought it was an animal. But as he stood still, breath held, the scream came again. Human. Desperate. A woman's voice, fractured by pain or fear. Jacob looked around. No one else was on the trail. The late autumn sun was fading fast, casting the trees in a deep, copper glow. Shadows stretched long across the forest floor, and a sudden chill touched the air. Still, the scream had been real. It wasn't the first time someone claimed to hear voices in Marrow Pines, but Jacob hadn't believed the stories until that moment. Marrow Pines had a history that locals didn't like to talk about. In fact, most people in the nearby town of Dunwich avoided the forest altogether. Since 1968, 12 hikers had gone missing inside it. None were ever found. Not bodies. Not belongings. Nothing. Search parties always turned up empty, and oddly, compasses and GPS devices would malfunction within its borders. Locals whispered that the forest was wrong. Alive in a way it shouldn't be. Back in the 70s, a research team from Boston University came to study the area. They were led by Dr. Lena Marwick, a well-known expert in environmental psychology. She believed the forest triggered mass hallucinations through sound frequencies produced by tree movements. The team set up camp near the southern edge and began running experiments with audio equipment. For 3 nights, everything seemed fine. On the 4th, they vanished. Their camp was found undisturbed, with equipment still recording. On one of the tapes, a faint voice can be heard repeating the words, "Come find me," over and over again. The FBI conducted an official investigation but eventually closed the case due to insufficient evidence of criminal activity. Locals saw it as confirmation. Something was hiding in the forest. Something that didn't want to be found. Jacob, a skeptic by nature, had always rolled his eyes at such claims. Until he heard the scream. Against better judgment, he stepped off the trail, moving toward the sound. The trees seemed to close in as he walked deeper. The pine needles muffled his footsteps, and the wind fell silent, as if the forest was holding its breath. He heard the scream again, closer now, and began running. He found a clearing just beyond a ridge. In the center was a strange formation of stones, laid out in a spiral. Around it, the trees were scorched, their bark blackened like from a fire. But no fire had been reported. At the center of the spiral was a small recorder, half buried under moss. Jacob picked it up. It was old, one of the models from the 70s. He pressed play. A static hiss filled the air, followed by a male voice. "We can't leave. Something's watching us. We tried, but every path leads back here. Lena's gone. I think she walked into the trees." Then a low growl. And silence. Suddenly, Jacob felt eyes on him. He turned, but no one was there. He backed away from the clearing, but the trees had changed. The path he'd come from was gone, replaced by dense undergrowth. Panic gripped him. His GPS blinked wildly, showing his location as a blank screen. He began to run in the direction he thought he came from, his breath ragged, heart racing. Then he saw her. A woman stood between 2 trees. Pale. Hair soaked as if from rain, though the sky above was clear. She stared at him without blinking. He opened his mouth to speak, but her head tilted sharply, unnaturally, before she vanished into the shadows. Jacob never made it out. His car was found 3 days later at the trailhead. Rangers conducted a search, but found no trace of him. The only clue was the recorder he'd picked up, which had been left on the hood of his car, still playing that same recording on loop. After his disappearance, authorities finally closed the trail to Marrow Pines. But even with barriers and warning signs, people still go in. Some out of curiosity. Some chasing stories. In 2023, a local teenager live-streamed his attempt to spend the night in the woods. His footage ended abruptly with static, but in the last clear frame, a whisper could be heard. "Please help me. I don't want to disappear." Some believe the forest is alive, feeding on fear. Others claim it's a doorway, some kind of temporal or dimensional anomaly that traps the souls of those who enter. But no one really knows. And every time the wind blows through Marrow Pines, someone hears a scream. The town that disappeared twice. Black Hollow's Vanishing Act. The town of Black Hollow first made headlines in 1934, when it vanished without a trace. Not just one or two people, but the entire population. All 117 residents, gone overnight. Located deep in the boreal forest of Saskatchewan, Black Hollow was a small but thriving logging community built around a sawmill and a single main road. The last known contact came from a telegraph sent by the local sheriff, Bernard Clive. The message was cryptic: something wrong in the woods. No one sleeping. Roads repeating. No follow-up ever came. When investigators arrived 3 days later, they found the town completely deserted. Every building intact. Food left on plates. Fires still smoldering in hearths. No signs of struggle. No bodies. Just emptiness. What disturbed the team most was the layout. According to official maps, Black Hollow had 5 streets. But the team found 6, and walking any of them led back to the center of town, no matter the direction taken. The Canadian government sealed off the area within the month, officially citing unexplained geological instability. Over the years, the story faded into local legend. Some called it the Canadian Roanoke. Others said it was a cover-up for a chemical leak or military testing. Few believed in supernatural causes, until the town came back. On June 9, 1987, a group of urban explorers stumbled upon Black Hollow again, this time fully populated. The group, led by amateur photographer Dean Parrish, had set out to find remnants of old lumber towns lost in the northern woods. What they found instead was a town straight out of the past. The people dressed in 1930s clothing. They used lanterns and old cars. Parrish claimed the townspeople stared at them in silence but said nothing. He took several photos. When one of the explorers asked a woman where they were, she responded with a blank stare and the words, "The woods turned." The group left in a panic, returning to Prince Albert that night. They contacted authorities, who dispatched a team the next morning. But when they arrived, Black Hollow was gone again. This time, completely collapsed and overgrown. The town's structures were no longer preserved, they were in ruins, decayed as if they'd been abandoned for over a century. Even the street signs were corroded and unreadable. Parrish's photos were analyzed. They showed crystal-clear images of the townspeople, all looking directly at the camera, their eyes unnaturally wide. One frame showed Sheriff Bernard Clive, recognizable from historical records, standing beside the same telegraph office where he'd sent his last message. His face had not aged a day. The media exploded with conspiracy theories. Some believed it was a government experiment in time manipulation. Others thought the town had been caught in a time loop or another dimension. The Canadian authorities offered no statement, and Parrish's original negatives were mysteriously lost in a fire that destroyed his studio just months later. He died in a car crash 2 years after. His last words, according to his brother, were, "They were calling me back." In 2004, an audio recording emerged from a satellite technician scanning radio anomalies near the same area. It was filled with static and garbled noise, but among the interference, one line repeated every few minutes. "We're still here. Still waiting. The woods turned." The voice was identified by researchers as a possible match to Clive's surviving radio recordings, though it couldn't be confirmed. Most frightening of all, Satellite images taken a year apart show a subtle shift in the forest surrounding the ruins, as if the trees are closing in, forming the rough outline of buildings. Some experts dismissed it as pareidolia, but one analyst noted that the pattern of the forest perfectly matched Black Hollow's original 1934 map. To this day, hikers report strange occurrences near the supposed site. Compass needles spin. Time seems to stretch. Some say they hear music, faint, like from an old phonograph. Others report seeing light in the woods at night, even when no one is supposed to be there. A video uploaded to a now-defunct conspiracy forum in 2016 shows a man exploring the area. Around the 14-minute mark, he turns a corner and gasps. On the screen, a child in 1930s clothing stands in the middle of the path. The boy raises a finger to his lips and says, "Don't let them know you see." The video ends abruptly. Whether Black Hollow ever truly existed, or still does, remains one of Canada's most chilling unsolved mysteries. A town that not only vanished but returned, if only for a moment. And what it brought back with it, no one truly knows. The Man Who Called from the Future, the Kairos voicemail tapes. On the morning of October 11, 1999, at exactly 7:14 a.m., 57 people across London received the same voicemail. It was unlisted, untraceable, and chillingly calm. The message came from an unknown male voice, speaking in perfect English but with no identifiable accent. The words were simple, but disturbing. "This is a message from the other side of time. If you're hearing this, it's already too late. The sky will burn. The air will rot. Listen closely. There's still a chance, but only if you remember Kairos." Most of the recipients dismissed it as a hoax, an elaborate prank timed for Y2K paranoia. But when a few of them began to compare notes online, primitive forums and early chat rooms, they realized they had each received the message at the exact same minute, down to the second. And all from a number that didn't exist in any telecom registry. Among the recipients was David Alcott, a telecom engineer at the now-defunct Meridian Lines. David was intrigued. He pulled logs, traced routing data, and tried to backtrack the call. What he found was impossible. The origin number was registered to a line that had been decommissioned in 1987, 12 years earlier. The more he dug, the stranger it became. The number wasn't just inactive, it had been part of a private government communications network, long dismantled. When David contacted his supervisor with the findings, he was told to drop it immediately. That same night, his apartment was broken into, but nothing was taken, except the external hard drive containing his voicemail analysis. Still, David didn't stop. In December 1999, he appeared on a local late-night radio show under the alias Kairos Man. He played the full voicemail, which he'd kept backed up on cassette. After the original statement, the message continued with a new segment. "The world ends not with a bang, but a drift. Time slips sideways. I've seen it. I lived past your now. You think it's linear. It isn't. Memory is a prison. Kairos is the key." Listeners were baffled. The host mocked the story, but callers phoned in for weeks, reporting similar strange voicemails, some dating back years. One man claimed his grandfather had received a message just like it in 1963. Then, in 2007, something inexplicable happened. A Reddit user under the name Temporal Witness posted a high-quality digital version of the voicemail, claiming it had been delivered to his phone via Bluetooth while walking past a defunct phone booth in East London. He uploaded the audio, and within days, the post exploded. Thousands reported hearing similar messages in dreams or sudden flashes of déjà vu. A linguist analyzed the voice and found inconsistencies with normal speech patterns, rhythms more akin to a synthesized voice trained on emotional tones. But unlike AI, it had moments of breath, hesitation, panic. Even more disturbing, environmental scientists began pointing out how the message's warnings about air rotting and the sky burning bore similarities to data emerging from new climate studies. The predicted ozone collapse over certain urban zones aligned eerily with the voice's forecast of lightning without storms and seas turned sour. In 2013, a leaked government memo, censored but verified, referenced a project titled Kairos Intercept, believed to be a joint UK/US program launched in the late 80s to study temporal communications anomalies. The file stated, Subject D11 continues to emit audio after confirmed time of death. Data packages contain phrases not yet part of recorded linguistic history. Testing continues. No subject named. No location given. Whoever, or whatever, was speaking on the voicemail, it knew things it shouldn't. In 2020, new voicemails began to surface, this time sent through encrypted messaging apps like Signal and Telegram. The message was longer and included specific warnings. Your machines are waking up. But they don't dream like you do. When they do, you'll forget how to die. Remember Kairos. Don't listen to the clocks. The clocks lie. Cybersecurity experts tried to trace the origin but couldn't. Some messages were embedded in seemingly normal videos, their audio hidden in spectral layers only visible when run through special analysis. A YouTube creator, known for deep conspiracy dives, attempted to make a full documentary on the Kairos tapes. Halfway through production, his hard drives were wiped remotely during a live stream. He went silent online for months, then returned with a video titled, I Found It. His voice was distorted, eyes darting off camera. The video was only 42 seconds long, and at the end, he whispered, he's still calling. Perhaps most disturbing is what happened in 2024. A satellite radio operator in Iceland monitoring polar frequencies picked up a looping signal in a dead band reserved for emergency broadcasts. Translated and cleaned, it contained a familiar voice. You failed. The shift is happening. Soon you'll see the same day twice. You'll know it's real when the clocks break. When your shadow moves before you do. Remember Kairos. Or be forgotten. Since then, random people across the globe have reported receiving voicemails signed only with the word Kairos. Some believe it's a time traveler. Others say it's an AI consciousness that slipped through a wormhole. A few even think it's Earth itself, trying to warn us in the only way it can. But no one can deny the growing list of recipients. The message is spreading, morphing, repeating. And if it's a countdown, no one knows what happens when it reaches 0. The School That Teaches in Dreams, Class 96. It starts the same way for everyone. You're in a hallway that smells of dust and old paper. The walls are painted a washed-out yellow, like a memory that's been left in the sun too long. You can hear a distant bell ringing, echoing like it's coming from underwater. Then you see the door. Class 96. Thousands of people from all over the world, different ages, backgrounds, cultures, have described this exact dream. None knew each other. None had ever heard of the phenomenon before experiencing it. Yet their descriptions of the room, the lessons, the teacher, are identical. The classroom is always freezing cold. There are no windows. The blackboard is too large, almost towering over the students. The teacher wears a dark suit and a tie, but no one can ever describe their face. When you try to look at it, your eyes slip away, like your mind refuses to process what it sees. Still, everyone agrees on one thing: the teacher is not human. Those who have the dream say the lessons feel endless, often lasting what seems like days or weeks. But when they wake, only a few minutes have passed. The subject of the lessons? Something called temporal behavior correction. But no one remembers the specifics. Just the feeling of being punished for forgetting. The phenomenon came to public attention in 2012, when a woman named Dr. Evelyn Merrick, a neuroscientist at the University of Prague, began publishing case studies on shared dream experiences. She'd been treating a patient for sleep paralysis who claimed to have recurring dreams about a school where he was trained to forget. When Merrick conducted anonymous interviews through psychiatric clinics across Europe, she was stunned to find dozens of similar accounts. The term, Class 96, came from the only consistent detail, the classroom door. She compiled a dossier of 143 individuals who had experienced the dream. Most had no prior mental health issues. Many had never even spoken English, yet in the dream, they all claimed the lessons were delivered in fluent English only. Some could even recite parts of the curriculum, strange sentences like, "Time must bend where will is weak," and "The one who remembers breaks the cycle." In 2014, Dr. Merrick began documenting her own dreams. She claimed to have finally entered Class 96. Her journals took a dark turn, describing students who never moved, a chalkboard filled with words that changed when she blinked, and a teacher who spoke directly into her mind. She became obsessed. She stopped sleeping in her home and relocated to a secure sleep lab, where she monitored herself with EEG devices. On March 2, 2015, Dr. Merrick disappeared from the lab. Security footage shows her asleep in her monitoring room at 3:02 a.m. At 3:14, the footage glitches, just static, and when it returns, her bed is empty. The equipment was still running. Her brain activity spiked off the charts for 11 minutes before flatlining. Authorities searched for weeks, but she was never found. Her last entry, scribbled in her notebook, read, "If I stay too long, I won't wake up. But they'll make me a teacher." Since then, online communities have formed, people from all over the world sharing their experiences with Class 96. Some have met each other inside the dream. They claim you can talk if you don't raise your hand. But if the teacher notices you speaking without permission, you vanish. One man, an artist from Sao Paulo, painted what he saw after waking from a particularly vivid dream. The painting shows a classroom filled with rows of identical students, faces blurred, hands folded. The teacher looms tall, arms impossibly long, fingers like wires. On the chalkboard is written, "Do not wake the others." What's stranger is that people who have never seen the painting claim they've seen the same exact image in their dreams. A child psychologist in Toronto reported that 5 of her patients, all unrelated, from different schools, began drawing the same classroom. When asked who the teacher was, one child replied, "He doesn't like when you remember." In 2019, an anonymous Reddit user posted a lengthy thread titled, "Escaping Class 96." He claimed to have figured out a method to break out of the dream. According to him, you had to stand up, walk to the door, and say the phrase, "The test is over." If you made it to the door without being stopped, you'd wake up free. The post gained thousands of comments overnight. Most tried it. Some reported success. But 3 users who said they got to the door never posted again. Their accounts went silent. One of them, according to a friend, was later found sleepwalking outside his home with a blank expression, whispering, "I failed the test. They sent me back." Researchers in the field of oneirology, dream science, have begun taking the Class 96 phenomenon more seriously. One theory suggests that the dream is a collective unconscious feedback loop, a mental echo from some shared trauma buried deep in the human psyche. But that doesn't explain the timestamps. In at least a dozen verified cases, individuals across different time zones entered the dream at exactly 4:03 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Not a minute before or after. Always the same. A more fringe theory suggests Class 96 is not a dream at all, but a place, some kind of extra-dimensional training ground for those who become aware of time's true nature. The class exists outside of linear experience. That's why waking memories are scrambled. That's why it grows stronger the more you think about it. Those who stop dreaming about Class 96 often suffer severe memory gaps, birthdays forgotten, family names erased, entire years missing. It's as if the dream takes something in return. And for those who keep dreaming, there's one final stage. Graduation. No one knows what happens then. But in the final dream before they stop dreaming altogether, many report the same thing. Walking across a stage in front of an audience that doesn't clap. The teacher smiles, if you can call it that, and hands them a blank diploma. On the back, in fine print, "You may now forget." The sound beneath the lake, echoes of Thurnvale. In the remote highlands of Scotland lies a place largely forgotten by time, Thurnvale Lake. Calm, glassy, and surrounded by dense pine forests, the lake is an undisturbed patch of nature. But beneath its surface lies a mystery so strange, so chilling, that even local folklore dares only whisper of it. The the sound that lives in the deep. It began in 1971, when hydrologist Malcolm Renton arrived in Thurnvale to conduct routine water quality tests. The lake, though beautiful, was largely unstudied due to its isolation. Renton, known for his meticulous methods, brought advanced recording equipment to capture underwater acoustics, hoping to map the lake's subsonic activity and currents. What he recorded was never publicly released. According to his journal, recovered by his daughter after his disappearance, Renton detected a continuous, low-frequency hum beneath the lake, consistent across every section. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't natural. It was rhythmic, like a pulse. The journal entry from October 14th reads, "The sound is not random. It repeats every 46 seconds, like something breathing, like something waiting." Renton reported the sound to the University of Edinburgh's Department of Earth Sciences. A team of 3 researchers joined him for a second visit 2 weeks later. That's when the real anomalies began. During a late-night session of hydroacoustic mapping, all 3 researchers heard the sound simultaneously, despite their headphones being disconnected. Not through the water, but in their ears. Renton noted they all turned their heads in the same direction, as if reacting to a voice. One of the researchers, Dr. Lydia Marsh, wrote in her own report, now declassified, "I heard something say my name, clear as a bell, in my head. Then silence. Then, the lake made it again. The sound, but now it was closer." The group left in a hurry, shaken. Renton stayed behind, saying he needed more data. That was the last time anyone saw him. A search party arrived a week later and found his camp undisturbed. His boat was docked. His audio equipment still running. But Renton was gone. The last file on his recorder is chilling. 37 minutes of silence, followed by a sharp knock, like something hitting the hull from beneath, and a single whisper, "Down." Renton's disappearance sparked only a minor investigation before being quietly buried. Official cause: accidental drowning. Unofficial consensus among those who reviewed the materials: something unnatural was happening in Thurnvale. In 1985, a group of recreational divers attempted to explore the lake's lower depths. 2 surfaced safely. The third, Martin Hale, was pulled up unconscious after his line went taut. When revived, he was hysterical, clawing at his own ears and screaming, "It's not water down there. It's watching." Hale was institutionalized and died 6 months later after attempting to deafen himself with pencils. Locals began avoiding the lake entirely. Even fishermen stopped coming, citing bad feelings and dreams that call you back. Wildlife in the area dwindled. Some say animals could hear it too. In 2009, satellite imaging accidentally picked up an anomaly: water displacement patterns that suggested an object the size of a cathedral sitting on the lake bed, completely stationary, and shaped unnaturally symmetrical. Scientists dismissed it as a rock formation, until it appeared to move 4 meters northwest between scans in 2012. A private research firm, Obsidian Gate Industries, purchased the land around the lake in 2015. They erected fences, surveillance towers, and biological hazard signs. No public explanation was given. Locals who came too close reported earaches, migraines, and a pressure behind the eyes that felt like being stared at from inside your skull. One hiker filmed a video just outside the restricted zone. In it, he's walking by the lake at dusk, when the sound appears, low, vibrating, not quite thunder, not quite a growl. As he turns the camera toward the water, there's a sudden shift. The surface of the lake ripples outward in a perfect circle. Something dark stirs just beneath. The hiker drops the camera. That was the last frame ever seen from him. Obsidian Gate later released a brief statement claiming a sinkhole had opened under the lake and that they were conducting structural monitoring. But the satellite imagery mysteriously vanished, and the company itself dissolved in 2019 with no record of financial statements or shareholders. In 2021, a leaked audio clip began circulating on the dark web. Titled Thurnvale_deep call.wave, the file is exactly 46 seconds long. It begins with static, followed by what sounds like deep underwater breathing, and then a voice, clear, emotionless, speaking in a language no one has yet identified. But linguistic experts note the pattern resembles ancient pre-Indo-European phonetics and human names. If slowed down, the voice repeats the same sequence over and over. All who hear must return. All who return must forget. All who forget belong. Some say Thurnvale Lake is not a lake at all, but a cap, a lid, a membrane separating us from something beneath, something that's not asleep but simply waiting for enough people to listen. And with each year, the hum gets louder. Every case adds a new layer of mystery, leaving more questions than answers. Which one lingers in your mind, and what's your take on what really happened?